Well, almost like clockwork, another lawsuit has been filed in the world of guitar. And, like almost all of them, it's about trademarks. But this time, it's maybe a touch different, because if you're looking for a David versus Goliath situation, you probably couldn't get closer to it than this. We're talking about a one-man operation going against a billion-dollar company. If you haven't seen it already, Bill Finnegan of KlonLLC, the famous Klon Centaur maker, has initiated a lawsuit against MusicTribe, the parent company of Behringer. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to be referring to MusicTribe and Behringer just solely as Behringer, because it's just simpler and easier to talk about it that way. It's parent company and company, they still operate roughly the same. Now, Behringer are no stranger to controversy throughout the years. They've filed lawsuits, they've had lawsuits filed against them, and legal battles spanning throughout years. They are no stranger to this sort of stuff. In fact, if you're interested in learning all of the controversies about Behringer, I made what amounts to almost a mini documentary about it a few years back, and in that I had to get a statement from Behringer, and it meant a good long amount of consultation with Behringer's lawyers. And what I can tell you from that experience is that Behringer don't mess around. They are a billion-dollar company, and if you're going to file a lawsuit against them, you need to have an airtight case. And in this one, there are some things that I see where, well, I think Behringer might argue. And so I'm going to cover basically a little bit about the backstory here, and then we'll look at some of the claims in the lawsuit, some of the potential counter-arguments that Behringer could make, and just overall see where we're at. So what's going on? Well, we've got the two parties. Let's start with the little guy first. In 1994, Bill Finnegan designed an overdrive circuit, and he put it into the Klon Centaur. Now, this became incredibly popular, and it was used by a number of very big artists. And by 1995, the production was outpaced by the demand, which is a good place to be in when you're in a business, but that meant that the products that were already out there went up in value. The prices on the second-hand market, they even started to eclipse the standard price of a new pedal because of the waitlist. And the demand just never stopped. In 2009, though, Bill stopped producing them full-time and only made a handful afterwards, which ultimately made the second-hand market skyrocket. Klon Centaurs sell on the second-hand market nowadays for anywhere between $5,000 and $6,000. But here's the thing, when we're talking about intellectual property, which is what we're going to be talking about in today's video, when it comes to circuits, there's no IP law for those. In other words, you can clone a circuit. And cloning is incredibly popular throughout guitar pedals. To give you an example here, what's legal and what's not legal, let's say you really enjoy this pedal, the MXR Micro Chorus. If you really like how this sounds, there is nothing illegal about you copying the circuitry of this, cloning it completely, one-to-one, and putting it into another enclosure. And you sell those. The legalities start when you get into trademarks and Tradedress. For example, if your clone, if you put MXR written on it, that would be a trademark infringement. And then if you made it look like this, you painted it the same color and so on, that would be a Tradedress infringement, which is the look of a product. So with original Klon Centaurs being harder and harder to get and costing thousands when you can find them, more and more guitar players are using clones of the Klon Centaur to get the same or roughly the same sound for a lot less money and a lot more accessible. Now on to Behringer. This is a company that has a bit of a reputation for cloning equipment. In fact, that's probably what they're most known for. From time to time they release original ideas and original equipment, but for the most part they really do specialize in cloning existing or pre-existing gear, and that has got them into a little bit of legal trouble in the past. And again, if you are interested in learning more about some of those legal cases, you can check out the other video. There's too much detail and depth to go into in this video, but you can check out that other one. But there are kind of two sides to the coin of how people view Behringer, because on the one hand, they make it accessible to get gear that people want for a lot less money, or in fact even gear that has been discontinued and they make something very similar for a lot less money. And people kind of really appreciate that, right? And I would be one of those people who would say, yes, that is good. More people getting access to equipment. If they don't have a lot of money, they can make music. That is good. However, there is the other side of the coin, and it's one that Behringer very much tend to lean into, and that is the clones could be like with our MXR example. If I was copying this pedal, if we were cloning this, we could put this in a different shaped enclosure, we could color it a different color, we could make a different logo. It could look incredibly different and still offer the same thing, or same sound. With Behringer, they could do that, but they don't tend to. They tend to really go close to the visual look of what they are cloning, which has, well, legal implications sometimes. And today we are seeing just one of them. You see, Behringer released, I think last year, a Klon clone. However, they really pushed the envelope. See, most people who clone a Klon will paint the pedal gold or silver. They'll do a little half-horsed dude doing something, be it holding a bow and arrow or even a guitar. And sometimes the knobs look similar or the enclosures look similar, but most of the time they name it differently. They'll call it a Sentry or a Sentra or something that kind of, it indicates we all know what it's trying to be, but it's not called a Centaur. Behringer didn't do that. Behringer released the Behringer Centaur, and in fact pushed it a little bit further. They included the same Centaur logo instead of the change where some companies change it. They included the same one. It's got the same knobs, roughly the same color, same layout, and well, it looks pretty similar. And Bill Finnegan is not particularly happy about it because, well, he's got the trademark to the Centaur name on a pedal. So Behringer are seemingly breaching his trademark on their pedal. And KlonLLC are also claiming that Behringer are infringing on their Tradedress. They're saying that their pedal looks too similar to the original. And in this case, I would say Behringer, they have a little bit of pushback on this. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the two pedals that is actually featured in the lawsuit, and we can see that there are at least some differences between the Behringer and the Klon products, specifically the size, but even the shade of paint, as well as, well, even the knobs are just slightly different. And the reason that I bring up the visuals and the Tradedress is, sure, it looks similar, inspired, but Behringer aren't the only ones that are doing it. I'm going to flash on screen for 2 seconds a picture of 3 different pedals. One is a real Klon and 2 are clones. Okay, and I want you to just take those 2 seconds just to pick which one do you think is the real Klon. Ready? Go. Okay, did you think that that was an easy thing to determine just on that quick glance? Because Tradedress is all about quick glances. If you think one thing is another, that causes customer confusion and therefore counterfeit and so on. Now, the pedals that I just showed you, 2 of them were clones. One was from Warm Audio, I think it's the Centavo or something like that. The other one was from Auratone, which was the Centura, something like that. Again, they all have some scent to do with them. But the enclosures are the exact same. The original clones came in 2 colors, gold and silver. These are just the silver examples because these were the best pictures I could get on Google. But the point being is that they look very, very similar, and in my eyes, they look more similar than the Behringer comparison. So when it comes to Tradedress, I feel like Behringer are going to probably bring this up. There are other competitors who are far closer than they are. So that's Tradedress. Let's talk about trademarks, because that's kind of the core element of this this legal argument. Trademark of the Centaur. Okay, that word is a trademark of KlonLLC, but how do you get a trademark? Well, you have to prove that you're in commerce. That means that you are distributing and selling pedals. You're selling products, right? And that is potentially, there's a loophole area I'm going to talk about that Behringer will maybe have a look at. So I'm going to read this section of the lawsuit here. From 1994 to 2010, Finnegan built and sold hundreds of handcrafted Centaur pedals each year, but never sold more than 700 pedals in any given year, despite demonstrable demand for many more. Starting in 2008, in addition to direct sales, Finnegan started distributing new Centaur pedals on eBay through a third-party eBay account operating under the username Boxing Rabbit. Plaintiffs distributed new Centaur pedals through the Boxing Rabbit eBay account in at least, and then a whole list of years, all the way up to 2024. Starting in 2010, plaintiff no longer produced hundreds of Centaur pedals per year, but continued to manufacture, sell, and otherwise distribute smaller quantities of new Centaur pedals through eBay, and also continued, as they had all along, to service plaintiff's previously sold Centaur pedals. Starting in 2019, in addition to the sales made through Boxing Rabbit eBay account, Klon also began selling the current Centaur pedal directly through its own eBay account under the username Klon Direct Sales. Now, the number of pedals that Klon was making through these eBay accounts is actually, determinable, because we can take a look at the account. The Klon Direct Sales account has sold 17 items. Now, I haven't figured out how to see the actual listings. I don't understand how to use the eBay interface, but we know that there's 17 items sold on this account, and the Boxing Rabbit account, 49 items sold. So a maximum of 66 Klon Centaur pedals sold. Now the thing is, we know that these weren't all Klon Centaurs, because he was also making the Klon KTR and selling those. So there's a likelihood that there's at least a handful of them sprinkled in throughout there. So it's probably less than 66, but let's max it out. 66 pedals sold throughout all these years. Now you're probably thinking, that's not a lot. But to maintain the trademark, you don't actually have to sell a whole lot. You have to sell some, obviously, but not a lot. Here's the loophole that I think Behringer might take a look at, though. So this is the Klon Instagram page, and if you look throughout the years, there are some posts about Klons coming up for sale. And a lot of them, when they mention the eBay Boxing Rabbit, they have the same story. Hi everyone, this is my first newly built Centaur unit in quite a while. I will be giving it to the close friend of mine who I've given units to in the past, so that she can sell it on eBay for her financial benefit. Her eBay seller ID is Boxing Rabbit, and I believe she will start her eBay auction sometime this coming Sunday. Now, what constitutes as in-commerce? Because if you're not selling it, are you in commerce? Most of the pedals, as we can see through the eBay listings, there's only 17 on Klon Direct Sales. There's 49 on the Boxing Rabbit. That's a lot of pedals comparatively. And if I was in Behringer's shoes, I'd be looking at, well, does that constitute a in-commerce situation? Is that a distribution agreement, or is it like it's described as you're giving a pedal to your friend and she's going to financially benefit and you're not? Therefore, is that a sale, or is that you're just making something for a friend? Laws are all about legal loopholes, and I have a feeling that that one will be explored. With that said, I'm trying to be impartial here and give you the information, but if you're asking for my personal opinion, I'm more on Klon's side. And one of the things that I saw that really made me feel that way is one of the things that he brought up in the lawsuit. When Behringer released their Centaur pedal, they also released a promotional video about it. A promotional video that really plays off Bill Finnegan's work almost as if it's their own.
Sometimes a completely new idea comes along that revolutionises the guitar world. This thing created a whole new sonic avenue for guitarists like John Mayer, Jeff Beck and Matt Schofield to explore.
No it didn't. That video is really very clearly produced to make it feel like the pedal that you're getting is the same, or it's like the one that they're talking about. And they use Bill's likeness and his name and everything to promote this product as well.
The origin of this iconic unit came from its creator's frustration of trying to achieve a great tone at lower volume levels. That the Klon's creator, Bill Finnegan, went on a mission to create a pedal that could deliver rich harmonic drive at low volume levels.
The reality is that he has not given his endorsement, and he has no affiliation with Behringer, and he's not getting any licensing, he's not getting any money from this, and they are using his likeness, and they're kind of inferring that their product is the same. And if this was the first time that they did this, you know, you could chalk that up to an accidental thing. But like I said, Behringer have had a history, and one of the things that I immediately think of was Auratone. Auratone were a speaker brand that were pretty popular in the 80s, and then they went out of business. Behringer decided to clone the Auratone speakers, which is one thing, that's fine, but they did a lot more than that. They ended up essentially cloning the brand as well. When Auratone's founder died, the trademark lapsed, and Behringer came in and registered the trademark Auratone themselves, and started producing speakers under the Auratone brand. This wasn't a licensing agreement with the original Auratone, this was just Behringer who trademarked the word. This is an original Auratone advert, and pay attention to the logo. That's the original Auratone logo. And here is an Auratone speaker, an original Auratone speaker, and here's Behringer's Auratone speaker. Notice that the logos are near identical along with the whole product. It's branded the same. And just like with our Klon example in this case, Behringer started using Auratone's history, legacy, and artists that use the product to sell their own. In the Auratone example, they were using examples like Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson using these speakers, which they never did. They used the original Auratone, which this branding had absolutely nothing to do with. They got sued for that, and the real Auratone won, Behringer lost. So it's not the first time that Behringer have used another company's history to try and sell their products. And that's just not cool. Now, in case you were wondering, Klon did send Behringer a cease and desist, which is like a official letter to say stop, in January of this year. Behringer obviously have not stopped, and that's why they've initiated the litigation. And what are Klon looking for out of this? Well, quite a bit, potentially. They want Behringer to destroy all counterfeits or alleged counterfeits or imitations, and they're also hoping that they can be awarded damages up to $2 million per counterfeit mark. Now, will they necessarily get that? No, it's up to. They could get a small amount, but that's only if they win or if this doesn't settle out of court, which it absolutely could. We don't know what's going to happen, but it is certainly interesting to see, well, the line in which is crossed, because the Klon is probably the most cloned pedal out there. Maybe the Ibanez Tube Screamer, or the Maxon Tube Screamer, I guess. It's up there though. If it's not the most cloned pedal, it's the second most cloned pedal. But this seems to be the first time that KlonLLC has actually, gone with a lawsuit. Maybe there's been cease and desist in the past. We don't know exactly, because those aren't public like a lawsuit is. But well, we'll see how this one pans out. It certainly will be interesting. So, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Like it if you liked it. Subscribe if you are not already, which you should be at this point if you watched this far into the video. And I'll maybe see you next time. Bye-bye!